Hello, I'm welcome to the show. I'm doing it solo today. Paul can't be with us. He will be missed, but the show must go on. He told me. He said, Eugene, the show must go on. Tonight I want to do a story that photos that I collected for a newsletter for the Adams Historical Society, and I later on made it into a display that hung at the Adams Visitor Center for, I think, a couple years until they asked me to take it down. And but it's never been on television, so here it is. It's called Lost Adams. Nicole, please, the first slide. Lost Adams. I've seen a few books of things like Lost New York City and Lost Boston, where they publish photos of buildings that no longer existed. And usually those buildings were of some kind of significance, architecturally beautiful or historically interesting. And we have a few of them in Adams that are gone, and it's nice to see them in photographs. And you're getting the option tonight to see them. Here's our first picture. It is the Greylock Hotel. It was the premier hotel in Adams until they built the Barrett House over by closer to the train station. And it goes back as far as the 1850s. There's even a comment that someone said that General Lafayette stayed there, but that's totally not really substantiated at all. But it's got a great, it was a beautiful building. You see it's got those big brackets underneath the roof line, and those long, slender windows, and those porticos, the statues, the pillars. And if you look down the bottom, you'll see there was the transcript had an office there, and also there was a Murphy's Hardware and Drugstore. You'll see it's in those days when they sold hardware and drugs in the same place. And it looks like he even had a soda fountain, but I don't think so. The people in the front here are watching workers it looks like they're constructing forms for the Adams post office. So we know this photo was taken in 1940 or 39 or 40 when the post office was under construction. We have a picture of it when it appeared on the 1882 map, and it looked pretty much the same. So from 1882 up until 1940, it was unchanged. If you look at this here, it says now F.E. Mole had a hardware store there, and anybody who leaves Adams on Route 8 going south, just before they're starting the climb up Harbor Hill, if they look to the left, they'll see an advertisement for F.E. Mole painted on the side of a barn. It's been pretty well maintained and preserved, but it's showing its wear now, and the building that it's on is covered, I think, with moss on the roof. But this is the days of horse and buggy, and the Greylock Hotel was around then. Unfortunately, somewhere in the 50s or something, they ripped off the pillared portico and the brackets, and they put asbestos siding on it. Not asbestos, asphalt siding, which is just as bad. I don't have a picture of that, even though there is one that exists of what it looked like just before it was torn down in 1967 with the urban renewal. And this is, of course, at the corner of Myrtle and Center Street. And it was replaced by this modern piece of architecture from the First National Bank at that time. The First National Bank later on became, the First Agricultural Bank, and then it was the Bank of Boston, it was Bank of New England, and then I think it ended up as TD Dominion Bank before it finally closed its doors. It has now been repainted over in white, and Window World is someday going to actually move in there. Here's a picture of the old Adams Town Hall, what it looked like originally when it was built in 1884, I believe. You know that Adams and North Adams were one town at one time, and in 1878 they split. North Adams took its own town, and Adams wanted to be its own town. So it took them from, like 6 years before they decided to build a town hall, and they built this thing, which they called affectionately the Opera House, because only the first floor was actually of any kind of municipal use. And Nicole, I wish you'd remove the phone number on the bottom so we can see the building better. Yeah, it's a great building of Richardsonian Romanesque architecture, and it was done by a man named Brocklesby, who I think also designed the St. Mark's Church in Adams, and I don't know if he may have designed the old North Adams Hospital, the one that was demolished in 1955 or so when the new hospital was built. This place had all these great rounded windows and spires, so anyhow, the Opera House. The first floor was all government offices. The right side was always the Registry of Deeds, and it's still the Registry of Deeds to this day. There was an agreement made that the Registry of Deeds would be in this building for as long as water flows and grass grows. I believe that's actually in the lease agreement somewhere. Let's see. Oh, that's also building on the second floor. It was the actual Opera House, where it was an auditorium, a space for performances, and Mark Twain actually spoke here. And I can't remember, he spoke in the early mid-1880s, and I believe he spoke somewhere either between where he wrote Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, or if he spoke here just after Huckleberry Finn was published. He was second on the bill. He wasn't the main lead. A man named George Gable was the main attraction, and he spoke about, it was a comedian, a folksy comedian who spoke about life in the Old South. And I believe Mark Twain may have read some stuff from his book Tom Sawyer, or even Huckleberry Finn. Here's what it looked like in the 1881 map. We have pretty much the same, kind of ornate looking, decorative. So this picture was probably taken, very close to its completion. Unfortunately, there was a fire in this building in 1949. It was a Saturday morning, and the fire. I do have a picture of the place on fire, and the firemen trying to put it out. And unfortunately, when they went to remodel it, they cut the tower off, 2/3 of the tower off. They removed the roof. I'm not sure how much damage was done, but I tend to think that they decided that it was right now to modernize the building and to make it look more, streamlined. And this is 1949, after World War II, and everything had to be modern and new looking. But they did sort of pay tribute to phony colonialism and tried to make it look kind of colonial looking, with multiple paned windows and Greek revival, Greek kind of temple looking stuff at the street level. Just go back. I just want to go back to show you what it originally looked like, and you can see how they altered it dramatically. They truncated it. Here's another grand old building. Some people always look at these type of buildings and say that they're haunted. This actually looks like something out of Disneyland, I think. That kind of fantasy world, kind of stuff. This was style of architecture is called the Second Empire, or the mansard roof. And the Second Empire refers to France, where this was sort of, this style came from. This was built around the same time that Drury High School in North Adams was built. Adams and North Adams were still one town in 1869. The Civil War was over, and they were switching the school system from the one-room schoolhouse situation to the graded system. So this school actually had grades, 1 through 8. And on the top floor, they also instituted, was a high school. And high schools started, towns were mandated to establish high schools in town. And the high school was there for several years, but the first time anybody was able to fulfill all their requirements and actually get a diploma and graduate wasn't until 1873, I think, is the first diploma that was issued. So it took them about about 5 years before they got someone smart enough to fulfill all the requirements. Some people out there may be old enough to remember this as a Liberty Street school. There were 2 Liberty Street schools. The other one was the old Adams High School that most people know. That lasted until about 1973. That was torn down when Hoosick Valley High School was built. Hoosick Valley High School was actually opened in 1970, and that building was torn down shortly after that. This building was probably torn down in 54 or 55, when the Adams Memorial School High School was built. That opened in 1950, January of 54, 53. So the school was they were considered obsolete, and they didn't want to have to maintain it. Interesting situation, though. In 1924, they built C.T. Plunkett Junior High across the street from this. This building, it was located where people may remember where the Wacky World is, the playground that's there. And you can still see the sidewalk leading up to the front door. I believe that sidewalk is still there. But in this little neighborhood here on Liberty Street, there were 3 schools. There was a little educational complex. So there was this grade school, 1st through 8th grade, first through 6th, and then there was a junior high across the street where you would go to 7th, 8th, and 9th, and then you would cross the street again to the Adams High School that had 10, 11, and 12 in it. So there was a nice little complex of schools at that time that lasted until the 1950s at least. There were 3 buildings that were built in this kind of style in Adams. All of them are gone, and you're going to see another one, and we may get to the 3rd one, but they're all built in the same year, in 1869. And they're probably all designed by an architect out of Pittsfield by the name of Vance. And this must have been a specialty, and he had it. That was his style, and he went with it. Here's the other building that was built in 1869, similar to the South Adams Academy that we just saw. Once again, brick with the mansard roof, 3rd floor. This is a great picture at winter time. This building is it was a financial center of Adams. I don't know if you can see this, how well it is. All the major banks in Adams were in this building. On the far left is the Greylock National Bank, which became the became the Berkshire Bank and Trust Company, and it was there up until the 60s. Next one, you can barely read it, but it says the Adams Cooperative Bank, and that was upstairs in this building. That was started in 1895. This middle building, I can't remember what it is, but it's some kind of it may have been a dress shop of some sort. And then at the far right here, you'll see the South Adams Savings Bank is on the left, and it shared the space with the First National Bank. for a period of time. And upstairs was things like there was insurance agents, doctors, lawyers. It's a professional building. And I think on the top floor, if it's not on the second floor, was things like the Masonic Temple and probably the Hall of the Veterans Organization for the Civil War veterans was located in here. This building was built by Isaac Collins, and it was called the Collins Block. And Isaac Collins' claim to fame is that he spearheaded the movement to separate Adams from North Adams. He even put it on his gravestone that it was his fault, that it was his honor to be the man who made sure that Adams and North Adams split. And he was proud of it because as soon as Adams knew that North Adams had grown, I think the population was double in North Adams than what it was in Adams. And that was because the Hoosick Tunnel was finished and North Adams' industrialized life just flourished. And local men were afraid that they would never get elected to office. North Adams voters there would never be enough votes for them to get elected by North Adams people. And so they chose to split so that they'd at least have a chance to govern their own town. I think they're also worried that Little Adams would be always under the thumb of North Adams, and they wanted to guarantee their future independence. Unfortunately, there was a fire in this building in 1915. Fire do a lot of damage to our great architecture. Who knows how it got caused? They didn't have a fire marshal in those days to make an investigation. It was probably one of the bigger fires in Adams and most destructive fires commercially, how much damage it caused. And consequently, they saved it, but they chopped the top off, painted it white, added a little, did they add that fencing at the top? Yep, they did. They didn't, they must have added all that. You can see the masons are still meeting upstairs. And you can see the banks are still there, Berkshire Bank and Trust Company. The next one is the Adams Cooperative Bank, and that is the first agricultural national bank. South Adams had built their own building by already 1926 or 28. You'll see here that this is the intersection of Route 8 and 116. This is actually the terminus of Route 116. 116 goes from Adams to somewhere in, I think, Holyoke. I think it ends in Holyoke, or maybe it ends in Ludlow. No, I think it ends in Holyoke. And then, of course, North Adams Route 8, that goes all the way up to Whitingham, Vermont. And you look here, we've got one of those modern digital tells the time and temperature type of thing. So this picture was probably taken in the 1960s. And check over the door, the fallout shelter sign. So if there was ever a nuclear attack, people could come to this bank and somewhat be protected from a nuclear blast. And I don't know if people remember also on the streets when there was there was holes in the sidewalk, and they would put out a flag every day, stick it in the sidewalk, and it would be there up and down Park Street. And this place was also famous for the entranceway had the first automatic door opener. So you stepped on it, and the doors opened for you, a little carpet there, and I think the bank even advertised that they were promoting it, that the bank with the opening doors. And also on the corner is another anomaly, another old-fashioned thing. I think there's two of them here, actually. On the left is a firebox, a fire alarm box. So if there was a fire anywhere, someone would pull the alarm, and it would send a message. A code that would so many honks and so many long honks and short honks to designate the location of the fire. And on the opposite side, looks like a police call box. The police, to monitor their activity, like night watchmen, would patrol the town, and they would have to every now and then stop here, open the door, call the station, and report that where they were, so that they knew that these cops were out making their rounds and not actually sitting in a barroom somewhere. This building, of course, was torn down as part of the 1967 urban renewal. I think every single building in this picture is gone because of urban renewal, and every single building in this picture is now the big wide parking lot. When you look at the big wide parking lot, you can't even imagine how you fit all these buildings in that space. There's even at the far end here, this was even another street right here. This was Dean Street, where that American flag is standing. If you can see the curb cut. And looking up the street, look at this great VW Bug. And in the back looks like an old, must be an old Plymouth or a Chrysler product with those great fins. Wrong way. I use this picture because it's pretty cool. This picture's got to be, I don't know, maybe from the 1870s, maybe even the 1860s, when photography was very young. But they did a good job. It's almost like a painting. It's perfect. This pool of water in front is the mill pond for L.L. Brown Paper Company. Today, that water feature is occupied by the McDonald's parking lot and the town commons. The building here, the Baptist Church, goes back to about, I think, 1826. And it was called, by some people, the Clock Tower Church, because it had this the clock tower, and you could tell what time of day it was, by looking at the church tower. And technically, this building isn't lost. It's still with us. It used to sit on Commercial Street, and it was a former Baptist church. And when they built the new, double click. I'm losing it, baby. Nope. And when they built the new Baptist church in 1895, 94, something like that, you can see this building back here, the roof in the back is that church. They turned it around and they put the gable end there, and it became their fellowship hall, parked behind their original structure. We are in danger here in Adams. All the great churches, there was like, I don't know, 7 of them. And there was a period of time within 35 years that 5 churches were built. There was just, the town was in a frenzy of building churches, to the point where a correspondent for the Springfield Republican made the comment, it was in 1895, he said that the merchants of Adams were experiencing a downturn. And they said that people weren't spending money in Adams in the market, in the shops. And they said it was because Adams was too busy paying off the debts on churches. Someone came back and we said to them, it's not the church's fault. it's the trolley car system. The trolley car system became very popular around 1890s, and it connected Adams with Pittsfield and North Adams. So people could hop on the trolley and go shopping in North Adams and Pittsfield, which had bigger and better stores. And that it wasn't the fault of churches causing the economic depression for local merchants. Here's another church that is, it's not gone. We haven't lost it. It's still here. The steeple is gone. The church was built by the Methodists around 1840. The Methodists, for a while, I'm not sure if they were still worshiping in the old Union Church that was located about where the town common is. And then maybe, I don't know the history of the Methodist Church in Adams, but they built this in the 1840s, and they worshiped here. It's also on Commercial Street, and some people may remember it as Buster's Garage. It was turned into a garage sometime in the 1920s. When the automobile became popular here, and the Methodists had built another church on Center Street. I was in the Soviet Union back in the 70s, and they would have these great, enormous, beautiful churches, and they would say, well, this church is now not a church anymore; it's a warehouse for cabbage. And the Americans were shocked. How could they take these sacred places and turn them into cabbage warehouses? And I had to tell them, in my town, they turned their churches into gas stations. And here's the Methodist church that they built also in 1894, 95, contemporary along with the Baptist church. This one you can see it had a spire. And I think this is in my Lost Adams collection because the spire is gone. We've lost, maybe 4 or 5 spires in this town. I'll be pointing out some more. So there was the spire we lost on the Methodist church. This one here on the on the new Methodist church as well. This church is also somewhat looking for a home, looking for someone to take care of it, and a new purpose in this world. Here's another church. This was originally built as a congregational church, and it was located about where the Adams Theater is located today on Park Street. And it served until 1868 when the Congregationalists built the big white church on the hill. But they sold it to the Roman Catholics. This is like the first Roman Catholic church in Adams. It was called St. Charles Borromeo. It was mostly an Irish Catholic church. Run by, and it was, I think, the first church consecrated under the new diocese and the new bishop of the Springfield Diocese. He came here in 1870, the first bishop of the diocese, and he dedicated this church. So this has like some kind of history with the Roman Catholic history in Western Massachusetts. This building still exists. I have to admit it's not completely lost, but the spire is gone, and the steps are sort of gone, and that space in front of it is no longer there because when St. Thomas Aquinas was built in 1897, they sold this building to Simmons Furniture, and Simmons, who was farther down the street at the corner of School Street, moved here, and they decided to put a storefront on it. And so this storefront is in that open space in front of the church. And if anybody's ever been into Simmons Furniture or the gallery that was there towards the back of this space, there's a set of stairs that climb up and that goes into the former church. That is, and it's still there, and it's. You can see, I remember the days where there were still some stained glass windows in it, but they've been since removed. Simmons Furniture was at one time probably one of the oldest operating businesses in Adams. It went back to like the 1860s, and so it was it must have celebrated its 100th anniversary at some point. I'm not sure how much fanfare it was, but Simmons was down at Leslie up until the 1980s or so, and a long operating business in town. Anybody recognize this building? Because this is the Congregational Church as it was built, originally built with that huge tower. I think this was also designed by that Pittsfield architect Vance, William Vance, I believe his first name was. Kind of ornate, lots of frilly stuff on it. Huge tower up on the hill. Unfortunately, I have a picture of it after a windstorm. It was undoubtedly not structurally sound, or the wind was that fierce that it blew the tower over. It actually crashed into the roof of the neighboring parish house there, and they decided to not rebuild it, but instead to build a smaller a steeple and not suffer the consequences of another high windstorm, another steeple lost in atoms. Here's the St. Paul's Universalist Church. This is the first brick church built in Adams. It was built in 1872, so it's fairly early on. It's very close to the end of the Civil War. Civil War ended like 7 years earlier. The Universalists were mostly Quakers who didn't want to be Quakers anymore, but still wanted some kind of easygoing kind of religion, not so structured by ritual and dogma and all that. And most of them were quite, had money, so they make sure they built themselves a real nice church and lots of great facilities. If you've ever been in there, it's the former Elks Lodge. It's also empty now. It also had a spire, another spire that's gone. We could have been the Spire City. And the road has definitely been lowered. I think we have another picture of this. It's been lowered because so that this church now sits up high on a hill. Here it is, sort of it's truncated, and the Universalist Church operated in about 1920 something or other, and the Elks bought it in 1929, and I believe they're the ones who removed the steeple. And it was probably another one of those, they were afraid it was going to fall or cause problems, and it's always could have been an insurance liability issue as well. I was meeting with somebody the other day from Sandusville, Massachusetts, and they were amazed about how many brick buildings we had here in Adams. Down there in South County, she said most of our buildings in those rural areas were all wood. And says, I'm surprised they're still in existence. But if you look around Adams, you can count all the brick buildings that were here, and the substantial architecture that was produced by the wealth that existed here because of the cotton industry. Here's another unique church. It is still in existence, but the steeple is gone. This is the Polish National Catholic Church. In 1905, there was a schism, a break. A group of Polish people did not like what was going on at St. Stanislaus. They didn't like the extravagant plans they made in the huge church and the foreseeable debt, and they didn't like the priest, and they didn't like what he was doing. And there was some trouble. There were some fights. These people broke away and aligned themselves with the Polish National Catholic Church, which was out of Scranton, Pennsylvania, which was started by a bunch of other Polish people who were disgruntled with their Roman Catholic parish. Part of it was the church was pretty much dominated by Irish Catholic bishops, and the Poles always felt that they were getting the short end of the stick. And also there was a tradition in Poland, and I think it still exists, where the local people owned their parish land, and they owned their church, and not the bishop. While in Massachusetts, and I'm not sure if it's out of Massachusetts, all the church property is controlled by whoever holds the title of Bishop of Springfield. So none of the property here is owned by local people. It's all owned by whoever has the title Bishop of Springfield. Anyhow, this building is still in existence. It's on Murray Street. It was active from about 1907. They built this. And it was active until maybe the 1920s. There were still some people who would get married here or buried here, and they would, there wasn't a steady priest living here, and it was sold probably, I think, in the mid-30s to a real estate somebody rather than they turned it into apartments. Interestingly enough, the bells in this church have, for some reason, resurfaced in Laughlin, Nevada, in a casino called the Showboat, the Riverboat. I think that's its name. If you know, Laughlin, Nevada was a town created by a man named Laughlin, who I think created a huge lake and then built a town around it. And this town, the casino is a showboat. It's shaped like a
There you go.
Sorry for the technical difficulties. I'm not sure. Where did I end off? Where did I go dark, Nicole?
What?
Where did I go dark? Should I repeat something?
Yeah, whatever you said about 2 seconds ago.
Oh, it's only 2 seconds? Okay,
Yeah.
good. Okay.
It wasn't very long.
Okay, good. Didn't miss much with these technical difficulties. Someone pulled the plug. This church actually, I don't think ever existed. It is the future plans for a church that burnt down. It was called St. Rita's, and it was on Holland Avenue, about where what they call the Taj Mahal, the specialty minerals main administration building is. There was a building in there sandwiched between 3 or 4 other houses, and it was a mission church to St. Anthony's in North Adams, and it was a church for the Italian immigrants who lived in Zolnite. It burnt in 1925. It couldn't have been lasted. It couldn't have been there for more than 10 years or so. And they had plans to rebuild it, and this was the plan. This is what it was going to look like. We don't have a picture of what the original building looked like, unfortunately. But having an Italian church in Adams is pretty interesting, because at one time, I tell you there were 5 languages preached from pulpits in Adams. Of course, English, French at the Notre Dame, Polish at St. Stanislaus Kostka, German at St. Mark's. In fact, St. Mark's the Episcopal Church, the rector was required to be fluent in German. That lasted until like 1938. I think the last German-speaking minister was there left in 1938, and they didn't replace him with a German-speaking rector. And then there's this one here, the Italian church, where they preached in Italian. Here's L.L. Brown Paper Company that used to be at the corner of Center and Commercial Street. And it is now the location of the Adams Town Common. And you'll see in the front there's some interesting things. Number one is the car. I believe that could be A.B. Daniels' car. You see the model and make. This picture was probably taken, it was taken in 1911 or 1912. Cars started showing up around then in Adams. And we know it's 1911 because that whole section to the right was finished and completed in 1911. It replaced the original mill, the wooden mill that was there, that L.L. Brown's first mill. Also in this picture, you'll see trolley car tracks. The trolley car system in this county was phenomenal. Actually, the trolley car system, it was the only place where in the United States where the system went across 4 states. You could leave Adams and you could go north to Bennington and then catch a trolley car over to New York State to Hoosick Falls. Or you could go south and it would take you into Pittsfield and Housatonic and then into Canaan, Connecticut. It was quite the system. It sort of didn't compete well with the automobile. So by the 1930s, it was pretty much bankrupt and abandoned. This one here, you see it splits. There's 2 rails, one going one way, one going the other way. One coming from the south, and one was headed north, and then the other one went up Center Street, and then it went down Summer, North Summer, and then cut across Lime Street, went out through the field, and it came out somewhere near McCann School, and went on to North Adams that way, while the other one went down and followed what's now Current Highway. So there were 2 lines that went through Adams of the trolley car system. I could tell you that, let's see, 2 stories. One is that my grandparents, when they came from the old country, when they got off the boat in New York, and they missed their train, direct train to Adams, the Harlem Express, and they got into Pittsfield. And then while they were in Pittsfield, there was a man who spoke Polish, and they said, "How do we get to Adams? The train isn't going there." And he said, "Oh, you can take the streetcar." And they put him on the streetcar. Well, my grandmother says they were all waiting for them at the train station to see the new arrivals in Adams, and we never showed up on the train. Instead, the trolley car pulled us right up down the corner from where her sister lived on Baskin Lane, and they just got off the trolley car and walked up the hill to the house. The second one is at this corner, there was a man who was mentally disturbed, had some issues, and he hopped on the trolley here and got onto the one going down North Summer Street. And out in the field, past Lime Street and almost to the North Adams line, pulled out a gun and started shooting at the passengers. There was a woman in the front row with an umbrella that was beating him. Unfortunately, she took a gunshot and died. And I believe, I can't remember all the number of people that died. I think there was like 5 deaths and maybe 4 wounded. Luckily enough, there were some firemen on it. They're going to a fireman's muster in North Adams, and they were strong enough to and powerful enough to tackle this guy and bring him down and corral him. The trolley car went to North Adams with him, and they get to North Adams, and they were going to put him in jail. And the people in North Adams said, "Oh, where did this happen?" He says, "Oh, this happened in Adams. He's got to go back to Adams. He doesn't. You're not going to put him in our jail." Anyhow, the guy was mentally ill. I guess according to the newspaper account, he had the shortest murder trial in Berkshire County history, and they declared him mentally insane, and he had was incarcerated at the Bridgewater State Hospital. And they actually let him out in the 1920s, and that he had completely recuperated and lived. I'm not sure if he died in North Adams. Well, this is what's there at now at the town common, and McDonald's replaced the Berkshire L.L. Brown Paper Company. L.L. Brown made linen ledger paper. They were pretty famous. I think they even made currency for Japan, currency paper for, not Japan, for China. And they made linen ledger. So this paper is archival. So most of the paper that L.L. Brown made is probably still sitting around in records places and deeds and registry of deeds throughout the Northeast. This is L.L. Brown's mansion. This is one of the, Adams had maybe two or three, three major mansions. L.L. Brown had one, Jimmy Renfrew had one, and the Plunketts had one. All three of them are gone. Funny that the mills and the mansions are gone. You look in the background here, you see that spire between the two chimneys. That's the spire to that South Adams Academy that I showed you in the first slide. So you know where this was. This was right on the edge of Commercial Street. And he had some incredible gardens. He had, you can see the greenhouse in the background here. He had hired a special gardener who came in and made these exotic plants and grew them in town. L.L. Brown was at one time considered one of the richest man in Berkshire County. This would be back in the early 1880s, before the big wealth actually got here and built those huge mansions down in South County. But this building was torn down by, it was abandoned. L.L. Brown came into some financial problems. And when he died, he left an incredible amount of debt in the town of Adams, and very humiliating for the family. And this house was abandoned, and his wife moved in with his son, who was became a lawyer, a Manhattan lawyer, and lived with him in New York. Well, by early 1920s, the place was just dilapidated, and C.T. Plunkett bought it and had it demolished, and then donated the land to the town of Adams to build C.T. Plunkett Junior High. C.T. Plunkett was very generous with his money for the town of Adams. He told you he bought this property, tore down the house, and gave the land to the town. Then the town came back to him crying, saying, we don't have enough money to finish the auditorium and the gymnasium. C.T. Plunkett pulled out his checkbook and wrote a check to finish the auditorium and the gymnasium, because he said, the school system needs these things. We don't have this in Adams, and we got to have that. C.T. Plunkett also left money for the hospital. His brother built the central part of the hospital, but C.T. Plunkett built, around the same time, the maternity wing, where something like, 9,800 people in Adams were born before they closed it in 1973. C.T. Plunkett also left a good chunk of money to the Adams Free Library, and he also left a good chunk of money to the Congregational Church. he definitely spread his wealth around Adams, and now we've gone and turned our back on him and took his name off the school, and now everything's called Hoosick Valley. But C.T. Plunkett, really, we shouldn't forget you for all that you've done for this town. Oh, this is the only picture, well, there's two of them actually, of L.L. Brown. And he's, right, you can see him, he's standing here, leaning against the windowsill at the Adams train station. The old, is now AJ's or CJ's, I can't remember what it is now, in Adams. L.L. Brown was quite the character. He grew up, his mother was a Jenks, and the Jenkses was a pioneer family who had lots and lots of money, and they also made money in Pennsylvania oil. Someone was smart enough to invest in oil in Pennsylvania, and so they had bucks. His uncles are the ones who funded him to make L.L. Brown Paper Company. But he was a sort of a smart, knew how to juggle money. And that juggling money and investing and making money. At one time, he owned the Xylenite mill in Xylenite. He owned a mill in North Adams, Freeman Cotton Company. He owned a Whiting Paper Company in Holyoke. I think he had a brokerage house in New York City. He did well. Unfortunately, he made some loans on property that he overvalued, and the banks caught up with him, and had dragged him through court. Fortunately for him, unfortunately for everything else, he died before they could actually pin him and put him in prison. Just to show you the wealth that they had, this is his wife and his son in a portrait. She was a Howland. He married, the Howland Avenue, and the Howland family was another rich family. So the Jenks and the Howlands married their fortunes together, and this is his second wife. His first wife. This may be his first wife, because that's their son Lawrence. They named him Lawrence Levi, too. He was another L.L. Brown. And he died in a suspicious death in New York City. Rumor was that they think his girlfriend killed him in a New York City apartment. But scandal, more scandal. People must recognize these buildings. Of course, that building is still there, the yellow brick building on Depot Street. You can see St. Thomas Aquinas spire in the background there. And the famous thing is this huge tower, another clock tower that dominated in the town of Adams. And people told the time by this clock. Unfortunately, the town of Adams, Al Ostrowski owned the building, that whole complex of Mill Number 3. It was at one time one of the larger textile mills in Adams, and probably even in the United States. And there were bricks falling down from the building, out of the building onto Depot Street. And the town pressured Al Ostrowski to tear the building down, because they called it a safety hazard. Al Ostrowski and Casey Murek spent I don't know how long tearing down story by story, pulled it down, but they kept the tower. They didn't tear down the tower. And Al Ostrowski offered it to the town to take, and save it as a piece of Adams. And the town said, no way. So Al Ostrowski just demolished it in 1972 or 73. Well, we do get to see the other Mansard, Second Empire State building, and this is the Plunkett Mansion. C.T. Plunkett's father, William Caldwell built this in 1869 also. The end of the Civil War was 4 years earlier. And the father, I'm told, made lots and lots of money during the Civil War selling whatever, uniform textile stuff, goods to the war effort. He was a war profiteer. And with all that money, he built this mansion. But I think out of obligation or out of some kind of maybe guilt, he built the Congregational Church that we just saw. That was built shortly after this one was built. And he paid for most of it. So he added 2 buildings on Park Street, this place and Congregational Church. This is where William McKinley stayed when he visited. And this is where his 2 sons grew up, WB and CT. They moved in here when they were teenage boys. They lived here for how long? WB, the brother, lived here until he died in 1917. The family owned it until 1936 or 36 or 38. And they tore it down because the federal government was looking for a site for a post office. And they tore down this building thinking that this would accommodate, the U.S. government would buy this spot for the post office. And the post office went and chose the house, the property across the river at the corner of Center Street. So we lost this building on someone's speculation that it would be replaced by a post office. This building was definitely built also designed by that Vance guy from Pittsfield. Here it is again. They're saying it's the residence of General Plunkett, and that was what they called him. They gave him that title, General, even though I'm not sure if he was. Yeah, I think he was in the military. Oh, this is him. This is General W.C. Plunkett. High collar, bow tie, young entrepreneur who came to this town. As a teacher. He was but started buying up mill property and became successful at it. Did they extend? Oh, okay, maybe not. And this is his son, WB. This guy was a mastermind. He's the one who convinced investors. Well, he was part of a group who were called the Home Protective Association. And the Home Protective Association lobbied Congress to write tariffs to protect local businesses and put tariffs on foreign goods. This is Donald Trump stuff. Anyhow, they got William McKinley to write the McKinley tariff. And it went into effect in 1890 in September. He got investors together to build Brookshire Mill number 1 on Hoosick Street. If you look at that mill, above it says 1889. They got into production and had cotton produced 2 months before the tariff went into effect. And the rest is history, because over the next 9 years, they quadrupled the whole place. They built one mill after the other. They had 4 mills, and it was one of the largest textile manufacturers in the States. It was the second largest employer in Berkshire County at the time. It attracted over, I think, close to 4,000 people to move to Adams. The wealth generated there created what's now Park Street. All the brick buildings that you see on Park Street were built in that era. The library was built. 2 or 3 churches were built, all in the 1890s, all because of the Berkshire Mills. I guess on this note, we can probably start winding up. Oh, I should talk about CT. Oh, we already saw CT. We know what a great man he was. Well, then we're in our last section. We're in our last few minutes. If we can save Renfrew Manufacturing Company for the next time. But hope Hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you enjoyed listening about atoms and our very unique history. And come again next time when Paul Marino will be back with us, and we'll have another good show. Till then, bye-bye.